Hey, this is Kristen Tschida, and I just want to welcome you to the Mom Minute for this week. And what I really want to talk about today is communication. There are 4 types of communication. I'm just going to focus on one of them today. But the first kind of communication is just this kind of informal communication. And every type of communication builds intimacy, and it builds oneness, and it creates connection. So no matter where you're at in all of these or how many minutes you spend a day on communication, being really intentional, just know it is building something deep in your marriage. So the first type is just informal. And in that, it's when my husband Greg walks in the door at the end of the day, I'm always asking, hey, how was your day? What did your schedule look like? So it's just those informal questions that cause our hearts to connect. They don't take a lot of time. He is a man, so he's not giving, and if he asks me, it's a whole nother story. But when I'm asking him, he's just giving me just the tidbits, kind of the overview of what his day is like. So that's informal. Second kind of communication is administrative. I brought with me my planner because Greg and I sit down on Sundays, and I have the old school. So on Sunday nights, we sit down and we just look at schedules. And that's what this kind of the administrative communication is. It's looking at what is your schedule like? What kind of kids activities do you have? What are some events that are coming up that you need to prioritize and get on the calendar? This kind of communication really helps because we don't want to have conflicts where, my goodness, can I just tell you how many times this happened, especially early on in our marriage, or when we were trying to figure out the kid thing with all the activities in the evenings, where Greg would think he's told me about something he's doing. We had kid stuff planned, and there was a lot of miscommunication. So we just made a decision quite early on in our marriage, once children came into the picture, that we would get out our old school calendars. Now Greg just has his laptop and he has everything for work and all the things that he's doing on that. And I seriously write it out and put stickers on it and make it all pretty. But this is just a great way. So this is a very helpful way in communication between couples. What we're doing is we're just really taking time to communicate about what does the week look like. This also helps us plan and prioritize the time that we will have together so that we can look at a week and think, wow, it's just going to be kind of a crazy week, so that I'm not anticipating, or he's not anticipating, spending, large quantities of time with each other. It's also good when you're looking at the schedules to know, are we overcommitting our family? Are our kids involved in too many things? Where does family time come into this? So that is something that is really key, even in the simple kind of communication that we call administrative communication. So when you're taking a look at your schedules, watch your kids. How are your kids feeling about what you are doing? Are you seeing stress in them? Are they feeling overwhelmed? Do you see the little ones just easily crying, or I can't do it. You know your children better than anybody. So kind of watch what's happening. If your husband travels or if you travel for work, really try to limit the activities in the evenings on the weekend so that the biggest chunk of time we want to be committed to is family time and developing that and just hanging out together. So informal communication, then we have administrative communication, and then the third one is the challenge conversations. And these are whenever an issue arises, whenever something comes up that is challenging, what do you do? How do you handle it? What does that look like? I'm going to talk about that, I think, next week. The last one, the fourth one, is just this, I call it life-giving conversations. And these are, I've read some studies that talk about if couples spend 10 minutes a day, 10 minutes, having meaningful conversations, it builds such a strong foundation in them. And what those meaningful conversations do is it's thinking future. So you're more apt to walk in oneness, to stay committed, and just by 10 minutes a day. So have those conversations, and that's really what I wanted to highlight today, is to have these meaningful conversations. I picked something up at a church a few weeks ago, and it says how to get to know them. And I was at a marriage, they were speaking on marriage. So here's one of the, and it's those kind of love starters kind of thing. Given the choice of anyone in the world, who would you want as a dinner guest? There's a question you can have. And if you notice today, I'm sitting on my couch. And one of the reasons that I'm sitting here in the living room on my sofa is this is where Greg and I do we have a lot of our conversations, just sitting in the living room and just enjoying the peace and quiet, not having the TV on. We might put some worship music on, or maybe it's just quiet. And we are having meaningful conversations. And I know it's so much more challenging when you've got little ones at home, but it is worth it. So after your kids go to bed, if you can just take a few minutes, and it's anything from these little like silly starters, kind of love starter questions, finding out what is a dream that you have, or what's something that if you could do anything that you would go ahead and do it. Or meaningful conversations are just planning for the future of your family. What are some vacations that you dream about taking your kids on? What are some adventures that you and your spouse would like to do? Like, I love state parks. So what a dream to be able to go to a state park in every state of our country. So those are just, as we just talk, what happens in those life-giving conversations is you're finding out a little more about your spouse. You may think you know everything about them, but there's always more. There's always more treasure to discover, more treasure to dig up. And so just taking these 10 minutes, and if you are really struggling and you're like, I can't find 10 minutes, start with 5. Just maybe throw one question out where when you're going to bed at night, you just say, what are you looking forward to in the next 5 years? Like, have something just simple, maybe alongside the bed table, on your side table, that you can just have that quick conversation and begin to intentionally build this life together that is deep and is very connected. All right, I went a little long today. That's the Mom Minute, Mom 7 minutes for today. So next week, I'm just gonna talk a little bit more about what it means to have these kind of challenging conversations where issues come up, where conflict arises, and what does it look like to walk through that, as Stephen Covey would say, with a win-win. So, all right, we'll see you next week.